eraser and a clay pencil in the small circle up here, and for each of the number of students we anticipate. If we anticipate 7, I normally put in 8 because the groups sometimes change the numbers. Additionally, in the desk we put their slate, which is what they're going to write on with the clay pencil. Welcome to the Brandywine Manufacturers Sunday School. Come on in. So I bring the kids in, I stop them here. If they're wearing jackets, I ask them to put their jackets in the windowsills. If there are no jackets, I ask them to roll up their sleeves, because when we get to the quill pen writing, we don't want them to get ink on their clothes. I let them know that ink on their hands is fine, it will eventually come off. I ask them to look around the room, and after I've done both the quill pen and the ciphering, if I have time, I'll ask them what's different about your classroom from this classroom. I'll ask them where are the lights. I'll ask them what the big black thing in the corner is. I'll ask them about the water fountain. I'll ask them other questions about how this is different from their classroom today. So once the kids are seated behind one of the desks with a quill pen, I give them instructions on how to use the quill pen. I point out the fact that there is a point on the quill pen, a fairly sharp point, and that's what they need to write with, rather than the flat part of the feather, because the flat part means there's all kinds of ink all over the page, and if they use the point, it's much more, it's just better. I ask for their complete attention, all eyes on me, complete attention, when I show that when you remove the quill pen, it might have a lot of extra ink on it, and this causes blotches. And I ask them to tap, tap, tap 3 times on the inside of the rim so that the excess ink goes back into the ink well. Once they've done that, if they still have too much ink, they can use either the paper or the fabric blotter. And I ask them then with the point, and I also tell them they can hold it close like a pencil. They don't have to hold it way back up here. Again, if they get ink on their hands, it'll eventually come off. And I ask them to write their name. After everybody's written their name, I go through this one more time and say, don't forget, tap, 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 use the blotter if you have too much ink. And I ask them to write the letters that they see in the open space below each letter. It typically takes them a relatively short time. Sometimes when I get to the end, when they get to the end, they've still got time because somebody else is still working on it. And I say, well, you can turn it over and you can write a letter, or you can practice your writing with the quill pen, and so forth. Ciphering is math in the head, and I usually use the example of 2 + 2, and they all shout 4, and that's ciphering, okay? So we need 3 things, and material-wise. We have what's called a clay pencil. We have an eraser, unlike we didn't have an eraser, and I do mention that when we do the quill pen writing. And we also require a slate. And so they have the slate. They need to hold it with their offhand, because typically they'll start moving, so they need to hold it with their offhand and write. I explain what ciphering is. I show them the word ciphering on one of these sheets, and I explain that it's math in the head. I then go to my examples, and my examples are artwork, soldiers, flowers, mice. I tell them we have friendly mice here, they don't need to worry. I told them that we took some pictures this summer out in the garden, and what I want to do is show one picture, and for those of us who are idiots like me, it says right on the back what's on the picture. Okay, so in this case, 4 soldiers looking straight ahead, 2 soldiers looking sideways. Okay, sometimes the soldiers are lying down, So I'll show them one picture and I say how many are standing. I'll then put that picture down. I'll show another picture and say, all right, now add that first number to this number, keeping it in your head. Don't explain it to their partners. Don't let them shout it out. Just make it clear that they're doing all the mathematics in their head. So we ask them ahead of time, don't shout it out, don't write it down, don't tell your neighbor, just write the answer on the slate. You may have to tell them that they have to do it fairly hard because the slates have been used many times in the past. If they lose or break their clay pencil, they can get another one. We can just hand them another one. And then, in order to go to a second design, we have them erase the slate. And then we go to a second or third example of bees or flowers or mice or whatever. So if you find that you are running out of time or the group was late and you can't do everything, the main thing to do is the activity. And even if they just get the top line written and then they have to go to their next step, that's fine. At the end of a regular period, I ask them about the room, about how the school is different from their school, but then we dismiss them, they pick up their coats and so forth. For cleanup, it's very important to remember that the quill pens still might have some ink in them, so don't go throwing them around, and I also remind the kids of that, but it's good to have a paper towel to wrap each, not each, but the group of quill pens. I tap them a couple times to get the excess ink off. I make sure I have a paper towel to wrap them up with, and then I take them to the Sunday school kitchen, run them under water, and get the excess ink out. I then place them in a jar. So the other thing that you need to do to avoid evaporation of the ink is place the corks back into the inkwells. Now it's important because some of the inkwells are larger, the openings are larger, sometimes they're smaller. It's important not to put a smaller one in a larger one because it's just going to sink down and fill up and go to the ink, and you don't want that. So here's a larger one. I use a larger cork. All right. And it doesn't matter, other than size, which cork goes in which inkwell. Once the last group is left, it's time to clean up ciphering, and we do that by collecting all of the clay pencils, including those that may have dropped on the floor, and the erasers, and we place them in the container. We then collect up all of the slates, take them to the Sunday school kitchen, and under running water, we wash them both sides, because you don't know which side has been used, with a sponge, and then you place them in the strainer so that they'll dry.